all of these quilts are from the Wendell collection, from the Brisco Center, which I think is, the Brisco Center is owned, the Brisco Center is part of the education college down in South Texas. I'll have to look that up. But it's called the Wendell Quilt Collection, Winedale. And these are considered community-made quilts. Here is an old quilt that looks like it's made from scraps. And it looks like they're made into fans. But notice the quilting is not the Baptist fan pattern. It leads one to wonder if the person who made this was not Baptist. Just look at the fine stitching and how perfect their hand stitching is on this. I am in awe of anyone who can do this kind of work. Here is a quilt that is not very old. It was made in 1986, and it was made by the Gaines County, Texas Mennonite community, and it's made of cotton or polyester blend, and it's machine pieced, and it's hand and machine appliqued. This quilt was presented to the United States Senator Lloyd Benson by members of the Seminole, Texas Mennonite community in appreciation for his assistance with their immigration rights during the 1970s. Made by the Women's Sewing Group, the quilt visualizes the Northwest Texas community as an integral part of the entire state, incorporating symbols of religious significance with familiar icons of Texas, including longhorns, oil derricks, cowboy boots, and a budding cotton plant. Two significant dates are memorialized on this quilt. October 19th, 1980 is the date President Jimmy Carter signed an immigration bill legalizing the status of more than 600 colonists. On October 31st, 1986, Senator Benson attended the ceremony in Seminole where the community members became U.S. citizens, which is when he received this quilt. Here is another quilt owned by the state of Texas that was made in 1988. Again, not old, but it has significant work on it. This was made by members of the Point Bonita Quilters Retreat. It's made with cotton. It's machine pieced, hand appliqued. It has stuffed work in it, and it is embellished and hand quilted. This quilt was made as a surprise gift for quilt historian, curator, and educator Joyce Gross, signed by members of the Point Bonita Quilters Retreat. Gross founded the event in 1981 with the purpose of gathering to quilt, research, and share knowledge and camaraderie. The quilt top was pieced and finished in secret over a period of 5 days during the meetup. Wow, can you imagine going to an actual quilters retreat and them not knowing what it's for? That's amazing. The names of the participants, including the self-proclaimed Collaborative Quilt Authority, Odette Goodman Teal, and the origin story of the quilt's theme, Have a Heart, are handwritten on the lower left corner on the reverse side. The chosen theme and motifs gently rib Gross for her expectations of the group's members while confronting the challenges of the rustic accommodations at Point Bonita. This was a charming quilt. Each little block was very, very different. My favorite block in this is the one made by the library staff. We all have heard the saying, the pen is mightier than the sword. Well, the library staff said the pen, P-E-N, is mightier than the pin, P-I-N. I just love that. There's all kinds of neat information on this quilt. You can always in YouTube with the software, if you have the app, you can always zoom in and take a closer look at any particular block you like that you see. Here are Sunbonnet Sue's, and the name of this quilt is called Sunbonnets with Love, and it was made in 1982 by the members of the Golden Triangle Quilt Guild. It's made from cotton, it's machine pieced, hand appliqued, and hand quilted. This delightful quilt was made by members of the Golden Triangle Quilt Guild of Beaumont, Texas for Anita Murphy, the Guild's founder and president. Each block contains variations of the Sunbonnet Sue character and represented the joy of quilting and friendship. Three-dimensional details include pearlized buttons, lace, and ribbons that decorate bonnets, and movable quilts that hang on a clothesline or spread out across the lap. Fan quilting is found in each block corner, and all blocks are signed in a different hand, thread color, and style. It may take a minute to locate all the names. It is called the Signature Quilt Top, and it's circa 1930 to 1940. It's made from cotton, it's hand embroidered, and hand and machine pieced. This colorful signature quilt top includes 42 railroad crossing pattern blocks containing 168 embroidered names. Now let's go back in time. Remember, the railroad, it was a very, very important thing. It brought all the supplies to town, and I assume that's probably why they used the railroad crossing in this quilt. This also included the United States Senator Ralph Yarborough's name in this quilt. This was purchased at an Austin area estate sale in the 1970s. Oh, I can't even imagine finding this for sale somewhere. What a score. The donor recalls the quilt may have been a retirement gift for the city clerk of Austin. The donor reinforced this quilt top by replacing nearly all of the fragile border pieces and backing where it had vulnerable areas with supportive fabric. Many Swedish, Norwegian, and German surnames represent groups that immigrated and settled into Central Texas area. It is possible that the presence of Ralph Yarborough's name could reflect his time in Austin as a judge in the 1930s or as a lawyer in the years following World War II. I just love signature quilts. I find it fascinating that obviously the people have long gone, but they have permanently in indelible ink left a clue to where they have been and in that place and time. I just love that. And here is my absolute favorite of this series, and it's called the Women's Shakespeare Club Friendship Quilt. And this was made circa about 1927. It's cotton, machine pieced, hand embroidered, and hand quilted. Following the birth of her daughter Martha in 1923, Maddie Ingram, 1891 to 1965, retired from teaching English at Fort Worth's Central High School, but continued to study literature through the city's Women's Shakespeare Club. This quilt includes the embroidered names of members, past presidents, and authors studied by the club. Maddie Ingram's name, Mrs. Ingram, appears in the center square for club presidents from 1905 to 1926, and in another square surrounded by the names of the family and friends, third row, right side. In 2022, this quilt served as an inspiration for one piece in the graduating thesis of UT Master of Fine Arts student Joy Scanlon. She created a handmade recycled cotton paper version based on the quilt's design with the same blocks representing her own creative mentors and life connections. What I love about this quilt is it only has 2 colors, but it has so much visual impact when you look at it. And let's be clear here. Yes, the quilt was made in 1927, but according to the description, she gathered a bunch of history of this club and then input it into the quilt. So even though she may have only took a couple years to finish this quilt, a bunch of time passed to make the quilt, if that makes any sense. This is gorgeous. And also, as I was walking around looking at the quilts, this one was up against a bookcase, but the bookcase was short, and so I got to glimpse at the backing and to look at all the handwork of the hand quilting, and it is just so gorgeous. This is my all-time favorite. This picture I'm showing you is called an album patch, and it was made circa 1934 approximately. What I really like about this quilt, being a quilt designer, I guess you'd say, I love the fact that they did not put setting triangles at the edges of this, and so it gave it a chevron effect on the edge. That is just so charming. We all like to make sure that our quilts are rectangular or square, and this has a different shape, and I just love that. I love it. This is made from cotton, and by looking at it, it looks like it's made from feed sacks. It's hand and machine pieced and hand quilted. This was considered a scrap quilt, and it has what's called a striking sawtooth edge. And this quilt showcases family connection and the social circus of Alta Butcher Bramblett from 1902 to 1968 in Brownfield, Texas. Bramblett moved from Arkansas to Brownfield following her marriage to be close to her brothers and sisters. She was renowned in the family as an avid gardener, farmer, fisher, crochet enthusiast, and cook. We can all relate to that, ladies, can't we? We all wear many hats. The quilt includes the names of Alta's sister, niece, and sister-in-law, and displays different skill levels in piecing. It was likely made as either a welcoming gift upon her arrival in Brownfield or in anticipation of her departure to South Texas near the end of the decade. This friendship quilt includes only one far-flung location closer to her home state of Arkansas, Detroit, Texas. And again, this quilt was a gift from Claudia A. Bramblett, and I think this is also owned by Texas. I like that some of these blocks are dated. We just don't get together and do these kind of things. Ladies, if you next time you have a block swap, and you are involved in that and you're making a bunch of blocks, make sure you put your name on it. Make it a suggestion. Everyone puts their name on it. Because fast forward 100 years, your quilt will look like however other many people's were in the swap. Maybe 25 people. There will be 25 quilts that are identical, and there will be no history of who made it, and the provenance of the quilt will totally be lost. You could put on there that this was done in social media, and that was how you made the connection. Our social media are now social platforms, are what used to be going to quilting bees and church and family gatherings, stuff like that. We all stay connected electronically. We don't do it in person anymore. So save that quilt and save the history in the stitches in that quilt. So very important.